So, Crystal, this is for the Tuesday class of week 2, which would be the class that belongs to, let's see, today's the 27th, the class of the 26th. This week, the subject is sustainability more than anything else. The assignment, you have some material in your discussion that's related to a different topic, and that being space management planning for facilities. The assignment 1 of the week is should be showing on your screen right now, and it has to do with sustainability. And sustainability is more than just a buzzword these days. It's actually been around for a long time, since at least the 1960s. And to a lesser extent, even further, because sustainability has to do with making things available to more. There is a Native American proverb that reads, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors; we borrow it from our children." And lately we have been looking at lots of discussion about climate changes and reducing carbon footprints, but that's not the only thing. Sustainability has to do with making a work environment that your people want to be in at all times, and making a place where we reduce the resource usage without cutting into the ability of the organization to do the job that it's trying to do. These are not mutually exclusive ideas. In fact, properly designed and properly managed buildings turn out to be much cheaper to run if we are using sustainability guidelines. In the United States, this is defined. You've seen the term LEED, LEED, which means leadership in energy and environmental design. A high LEED rating is a building that minimizes its usage and minimizes its usage of resources, and minimizes its impact on the environment in which it is functioning. They can also be very, very beautiful buildings, but the issue is that we want to look at how this applies to a healthcare facility. And you can do this you can do this by doing some web searching, or you can really read the text. Sorry about that. I don't know why that went back. Let's bring that up again. So we, in this particular case, let's talk about that. You mentioned in last week's discussion about what happens if the power goes out. So a healthcare facility cannot afford to be without power. Essentially, no facility can afford to be without power when you get right down to it. So a healthcare facility is not particularly any more special in that respect than any others, except that power is important to the lives of our residents and our patients. So what we want to do is look at what can be done to reduce the impact on the environment. What that means, one of the examples in your textbook talks about Coca-Cola having to reduce its water usage 25% in Atlanta due to regulations put in effect by the local governments. Well, they can't reduce 25% of the water that goes into their product. Your soft drinks are mostly water, and you can't suddenly say, okay, well, we're going to reduce the size of the can by 25%. So now our 12-ounce Coca-Cola has suddenly become a 9-ounce. They can't do that. Their customers wouldn't tolerate it, and it's very, very bad business model to begin with. So what they have to do, and ways of dealing with that, are to look at other uses of water in the facility, and this could be inefficient toilets. It could be, it could be inefficient cleaning equipment that uses a lot of water that's not necessary. It could be how we clean. Obviously you're in a food preparation environment, so you have to be able to have clean equipment all the time, and it has to be regularly cleaned. So lots of ways that can be looked at to reduce the water footprint of the building. So there are some things that we can do. Our patients do require, if we're in your interest is in long-term care facilities, our patients do need to have a certain basic level of service. And so we need to be creative in how we do this. Now, it's easy to be creative when you are designing and building a brand new building. That is the time when it's the easiest. You can design it to be very efficient in terms of its utilization of energy, its use of water, its emissions into the environment. This is part of the carbon footprint. When buildings are now given a LEED rating, when they're designed and built, and architects are very familiar with what it takes to have a high LEED rating. So there's other things that need to be done. Yes, our patients need to have all of the things that are required in terms of services. So they need to have access to lots and lots of electrical power, and they need food, and they need drink, and they need other things. But we can cut our water usage quite a bit by using water-saving technologies, not just low flow rate toilets or low volume toilets, but also looking at the way water is expended in general. We also can look but we also need to look at other aspects of sustainability, which include sustainability efforts include things like recycling, things like reducing the usage of resources, things like not. One of the advantages to going to electronic health records is that we reduce that kind of paper usage, ink usage, and other wastage going into the environment. So there are lots of strategies. I'd like you to think about what can be done to reduce that. The next phase of this, of course, is that long-term care facilities generally are older. And buildings can be retrofit to increase their efficiency and decrease their use of resources. It can be an expensive proposition. So one of the factors is We can also make use of the so-called green materials. We see a lot of this in terms of soaps and chemicals that we have to use. I mean, when we're working in a healthcare facility, sanitation is a major issue, and that often requires chemicals. So there are products that are greener than others that we can be using for those purposes. We can look at a number of different areas. Looking at uh, how we take care of our waste products, and how looking at the use of use of our cafeteria and food sources, because food waste is a major issue in many of these organizations and many of these facilities. Um, the uh, the facilities manager has a big role to play in those arenas, simply because uh, they can make certain that environmentally friendly, if you will, supplies are ordered. They can have initiatives in their staff to find ways of reducing the environmental impact and the carbon footprint of their facility. But it is, as I said, it's easy to do this um, with the design phase of a building. Not so easy when working with an older building. But we can go in and do things like enhance the efficiency of our HVAC system, enhancing insulation to reduce the need for heating and ventilation and air conditioning in our facilities. So we can look at all of these factors, and bear in mind that sustainability is not just a fad. It has really become a shift in the way our society is thinking. The city of Loveland, which is where I lived, recycles about 68% of the waste, and it's true recycling. It's not just taking it out and taking it into a recycling bin and then throwing it away. It actually is separated out and circulated out for reuse, recycling, recovery of materials. So this is something that's become very, very important. Um, LEED ratings often get architectural awards, so architects are very bought into this because they can be recognized for the sustainable characteristics of their designs. That gets them more clients and does and also allows them to really stretch their architectural expertise. How do we pay for these things, though? There's a lot of accounting that goes into and cost analysis that goes into facilities management. We look, and when we're actually looking at the cost of sustainability, we're looking at something called a life cycle cost analysis, which basically is what is the cost of operating your building over the period of time in which it will be usable, over its lifetime. And we can actually use that tool to look at when we are engaged in a project, either build a new build or a retrofit of an existing facility. We look at what it's going to cost us, and we look at the cost of running that facility over its lifetime. And where and compare that to not doing the sustainability. And what we have found is that the sustainability added originally was adding a small margin, a few percent to the cost of construction. Now, a few percent over a lifetime doesn't sound like much, but actually it is quite sufficient, quite excessive, and costly. But what happens is, as in everything else, the more we get into this, the more the costs are falling. And now we're finding that the cost of the build versus the cost of for a sustainable building versus the old style, and then if we take into account the cost of the of operation, we're finding savings of quite a bit, actually, by comparison with before. So over, savings well in excess of the actual additional costs. So when we're looking at these things, our really truly sustainable buildings are not only those that reduce the energy and other resource costs, but also are built for minimal, for reducing the cost of maintenance and repair and replacement. Something that is fairly easy to change or to improve as well. And then what we call the residual value. What happens at the end of its lifetime? What is its resale or salvage value, or what is going to be the cost to dispose of a facility? And then other things that we look at are the charges, the costs of actually paying for these things over time. It's very rare that you're going to build a building and pay for it out of cash. It's very rare that you are going to modify a building and pay for it out of cash. So there will be the carrying costs of loans and the borrowing costs of the money. But there are also other things to throw in when we think about it, which is the sort of non-monetary benefits that come. An environment that the employees are going to be feel is safer to work in or pleasanter to work in. Those are non-monetary costs, but they can influence the bottom line. Happy employees can have a positive effect on the bottom line. Unhappy employees can definitely have a negative effect. So there are lots of different lots of different considerations. The section beginning on page 193 on economic studies is actually worth taking a look at when you're looking at this text. So that's where I'm going to quit for now. When you read this, I'd like you to send me an email, and the code word this time is Paris, Paris. So if you can just send me a quick email after you've watched this on Tuesday, that will count for your attendance in the class. Go ahead and get started. I know you had some trouble with Word. I hope you can get that taken care of. I hope you were able to contact the school and contact the help desk and get that taken care of. As I said in my email, if you have to use Notepad, just use it. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to be unhappy about formatting if that's what you have to use at this point. But if you have to get over to school and see Cody about this, then please do as quickly as you can. So That's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to cut this off, and and I'll talk with you on Thursday morning. And hope you had a good weekend.